Hi guys, it's Dan here, and today I'm going to be talking about. Oh, can you see that? Come on, computer. There you go. New Spring, which is like an epic fantasy. It is part of the massive 15-book Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. Now, before I get into a synopsis or anything, just a quick disclaimer. I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce any of the names in this, so I'm just going to go with it, and whatever comes out, comes out. Also, I've read all the other books in the series. This is the last one of the 15 that I had to get around to reading. So, although it is actually a prequel to the other 14 books, I do already have all of the context for that. So that kind of influences how I'm reviewing it, if you see what I mean. But I won't spoil anything. Yeah. So that being said, New Spring, as I said before, is a prequel to the main 14-book Wheel of Time series, and it follows two important characters from that series, Moiraine and Lan. So Moiraine is basically a wizard, but in the Wheel of Time books they call them Aes Sedai. And we meet her at the point where she is kind of on the verge of completing her magical training education at the White Tower, which is kind of a cross between a magic university and also the sort of seat of Aes Sedai political power, which is quite a lot of political power in this world. So yeah, Moiraine and her best mate in this book, who's called Xuan, who is another important character from the later series, they sort of have to complete their wizard training, and they go through like a few hazing rituals, and all the while they're doing this, they're discovering a load of secrets and mysteries that end up turning into like a big quest to find the chosen one, like who's called like the Dragon Reborn in this book, but it basically means the chosen one, and he's going to be the guy that fights Sauron in the last battle. Sorry, I mean the Dark Lord in the last battle. And that quest gets explored a lot more in the later books. This is really just the introduction to it. And then you've got Lan, the other main character, and he is the heir to the throne of Malkia. The only problem with that being that Malkia no longer exists because it was wiped out by the Dark Lord when Lan was just a kid. So now he kind of goes around just generally seeking revenge and killing nasties. But just recently he's been involved in the Ale War, which is another important event from the Wheel of Time sort of history. And he's just heading back up north towards his homeland in the Borderlands, and on the way he gets involved in a bunch of political manoeuvrings and also meets Moiraine, obviously. So that's it with no spoilers, and I guess the next question is, was it any good? And the answer to that is that honestly I really struggled to get into this book until literally the last sort of 100 pages or so out of the 400 odd that there are. You know, it felt to me like there were real problems with the pacing and also with the focus of the novel. But like I say, it did pick up towards the end. But yeah, so in terms of what was good, you know, Robert Jordan's world building is, you know, as ever, it is like second to none, apart from maybe like Tolkien and Stephen Erickson. And we get to explore some more of the Borderlands in this book, which is a really interesting area from the Wheel of Time world that doesn't get an awful lot of attention in the main series. So yeah, it was nice to see a bit of that. It's just a shame that for all that, 3/4 of the book is focused on the White Tower, you know, in terms of page time probably. And we see loads of that in the other books, so yeah, it would have been nice to see more of the Borderlands and a bit less of the White Tower, I think. But yeah, something else that I really liked was getting to see a bit more of Lan's backstory. You know, he's a really popular character from the main series, and he's a character that I always really enjoyed reading about. So it was nice to get some you know, more in-depth stuff. His character backstory is revealed very slowly throughout the other series, and this does add some depth to it, which I really liked. But again, though, I thought that the focus was an issue. I mean, the first chapter follows Lan, and then, but that's really just an opening gambit that's not even really related to the rest of the plot. And then there's 200 pages of Moiraine, and then we get another chapter of Lan, and then another 100 pages of Moiraine, and then it's just the last quarter of the book where we start to see a lot more of him. And I thought it was going to be much more of an even split before I went into this book, so I was a little bit disappointed in that again. But yeah, I mean, so for about 3/4 of the book, we're basically just following Moiraine, and to be honest, instead of, I felt anyway, that instead of really increasing my investment in Moiraine as a character throughout the series, seeing her in, being much younger and being involved in a lot of the time, kind of childish pranks and things like that, it actually detracted from the sort of gravitas and the dignity that are a really important part of her character in the rest of the series. So I don't really think that all that focus on Moiraine was really that useful, or it didn't match my perception of her as a character later on in the series. But yeah, there were a few other problems as well. Like I say, pacing has, I don't think it's ever really been Robert Jordan's strong point, and that's pretty evident in this book as well. I mean, sort of after the opening gambit, the opening chapter with Lan, we literally have 4 or 5 chapters about Moiraine and Xuan making lists. No joke, I swear to you, that's true. And then, the last 100 pages, it really just feels like Jordan is trying to cram loads and loads in, and just massively upping the pace in order to try and up the excitement levels. But because it was so slow before, the change of pace is actually quite jarring as a reader, or I thought it was anyway. So I think if he'd just evened it out a bit, it would have been to the benefit of the book. Now, I've seen a lot of people tend to, I think, with Robert Jordan, put his problems with pacing down to the fact that his writing style has lots of lengthy descriptive prose sections in it that do sort of slow down the pace a bit. But I mean, to be honest, I don't mind that. I'm a real fan of that kind of writing style generally. For me personally, his problems with pacing are to do with pacing the plot, not the actual text itself. Like I say, a load of the White Tower stuff in this book was really slow paced, unnecessary, and could have been just edited down, and probably should have, I think. And that would have enabled a more even split of the book between Moiraine and Lan, that I think would have benefited the pace at no end. But yeah, anyway, enough about that. Another issue that I had was with the sort of cameo appearances of, specifically of Elada and Cadsuane, who are main characters from, not main characters, but really important characters from later on in the other books. But I think in this book, having them appearing really didn't add anything to their backstory or develop their characters in any real way. Elada is just portrayed as being opposed to Moiraine and Xuan, but it's never really given a decent explanation as to why, I didn't think anyway. And Cadsuane just seems like she's the character from the main series, just plonked straight into this book. She's not particularly different in any way, and and the events in this book just don't add anything to her backstory at all, really. And so, if there's no development or no fleshing out of the character, then what's the point in having them there? That you could have had literally just put random new names in those 2 roles, and it would have made no difference to the series overall. So I think Jordan should have either completely cut them out of this book, or spent a lot more page time with them, fleshing them out and making them into deeper characters. But he didn't. So, would I recommend this book? Well, I mean, to be honest, if you definitely don't need to read this to enjoy the rest of the Wheel of Time series. And even though it's a prequel, you for sure don't need to read it before you read the rest of the Wheel of Time series either. In fact, if you are getting into it, I would recommend that you definitely don't read this before you read the Eye of the World, which is the first book in the main series, because my reading experience of this wasn't particularly great, and I think it would probably put me off the rest of the series. But if you've already read the rest of the books or a number of them, then yeah, probably you'll want to read this like I did for a sense of completeness. It's not as big or daunting as the other ones, so you can get through it pretty quickly. But I mean, I really would only recommend reading this for that sense of completeness. As a book in its own right, I think it's not up there with Jordan's best work. So yeah, I guess that's the overall review. Not his best. Yeah, bye.